Hello everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Today I just wanted to go over some photos within the last couple of years that I've taken, just give a little backstory to them and just talk about them. So let's get to it. Starting with the first photo here, this is on top of Stammes Chief in Squamish, British Columbia. I took a trip to BC to see my friend back in 2018, I think it was. And this was definitely like one of the most memorable moments of my life. So Squamish is 40 minutes from Vancouver, and then another 40 minutes from there is Whistler, so it was kind of that in between. And I ended up coming back to Squamish like almost every day. I felt Whistler was just a little too much like attraction touristy, so I felt Squamish was like a little bit more pure, I guess, and I just really loved the vibe of the town. So originally, me and my friend, we were going to Shannon Falls in Squamish, which is right beside Stammes Chief, and as soon as I saw that rock, I was like, I want to conquer that. I even made an Instagram post about it. Stammes Chief is considered a granite monolith. It's only about like 700 meters above the sea level, but it was still a pretty intense hike. It took us about 2 hours to get to the top, but it was kind of an overcast day, so it was still amazing, but it wasn't like peak. And I didn't bring the drone because I thought it would be too windy, and as soon as we got to the top, I realized there was no wind, and I'm like, I'm an idiot, like I could have brought it. So I turned to my friend and I'm like, I need to come back here for sunrise. You don't have to come with me, but I'm gonna be going. So he throws out the suggestion, why don't we come back at night, hike the rock, and then we can camp in our hammocks and just watch sunrise. And I'm like, yes, 100% yes. So as we were leaving the hike for the first time, we go to the store, grab some snacks, some headlamps, some random things, and then my friend goes off to work. And then he gets off later in the night, so we go back, grab all our stuff, and go back to Stammes Chief. So it's now like 2 in the morning, and we're making the ascent up the rock. It was a super eerie feeling. It was just pitch dark aside from our headlamps, and right beside the rock is Shannon Falls. So there's all this mist that's just like coming in while we're trying to walk around. So it definitely added to the atmosphere. So this is the picture. We are on peak 3, and then down below you can see the little town of Squamish right there. The second photo is still from on top of the rock. This is just my friend hanging out in the hammock in the morning. I just love the way the sun was coming in and lighting up all the pines, and just the overall aesthetic of the photo I was really into. I tried to kind of make it more of a purple and yellow complementary color scheme going here. This next photo, we started a fire in the morning. It was like super cold on top. And then I liked the way the sun was illuminating the smoke, so I was trying to capture that, and then added a little bit of green tint into this one just to give it kind of more of like a analog vibe. These next couple photos were taken at Lake Superior Provincial Park, mainly around Old Woman Bay. So it's pretty far north from southern Ontario. It took us about like 10 hours to get there. So we plan to be here for like 2 days and then go even further north up to Sleeping Giant. This first photo is when we first arrived at Old Woman's Bay. I was pretty excited. I've seen this place, I've seen pictures, and I've been wanting to go here. And just now seeing that rock for the first time, it was pretty sweet. So we ventured up the coastline a little bit, coming to these rocks, and I took this picture of my girlfriend looking up at the old woman. You're apparently supposed to see an old woman in this rock. I can't really say that I see it, but I'll let you be the judge. But I just really like this photo because of the juxtaposition of how small my girlfriend looks compared to the rock. This next photo is just showing more detail in the rock. I'm a really big fan of rocks, just the structure and formation that it gives. It's just always really interesting. And I tried to add kind of more cool colors here, so like green, purple, and blue. And I was just a big fan of the detail in the rock here. So later that night we came back to our campsite. I think it was called Little Rabbit or something like that. It was like 5 minutes from Old Woman Bay, and we were right below Old Woman River behind our campsite. So we went down there at like 1 or 2 a.m. and I was trying to get some star photos, but the clouds started coming in. which wasn't too big of a deal because I just started shooting anyway, and I just really love the reflection of the clouds here on the water. I think it looks really nice. The next day we hiked a trail called the Nokomis Trail. I probably butchered that, but it ended up being a super humid day, so the hike was a lot more intense than we thought it would be. My girlfriend was pretty pissed. I think she was just super hangry. But once we got to the top, everything was chill. And that's why I really like this photo, because it just kind of shows the reward that we're getting after like a super intense hike, and we're just kind of sitting back and relaxing and taking in the view. And I just really love the green and blues in this. It just gives me kind of that early summer vibe. So after about 2 days in Lake Superior, we headed up north to Sleeping Giant. It was about another 6 hours, I believe. Now, Sleeping Giant, I can actually see the giant in the rock. I think it's a little bit more noticeable than Old Woman's Bay. So this photo was taken on the second day. We were climbing the giant. We were trying to get to the crack, which is kind of like the main attraction. And this was one of the viewpoints along the way, and I just really liked the little islands in that little peninsula that went out there. And I had a lot of fun playing around with the colors on this one. So for this second one, I was actually taking a time lapse and completely forgot. I got my GoPro 360 out and just was walking to the edge, and I heard the shutter click down, and I was like, fuck, like I'm in the shot. But I thought it was kind of funny, and it's still like a pretty good looking photo, so I ended up keeping it. So this was back at our campsite later that night. We backed onto Marie Louise Lake, I think it was called. And we were like getting dinner started or something, and I looked out onto the lake and saw the moon rising, and I was like, holy shit. So I was like running around trying to grab some pictures, trying to grab some video. I ended up taking a time lapse. I thought this photo was pretty nice. I liked the kayaks as that foreground subject. It just kind of brought everything together. And then this next photo is actually the next day. It was the sunrise. We were trying to get up for sunrise the last like 3 days, and it just wasn't happening because we were doing just so much. So I actually got up to go to the bathroom, and I saw the light coming through the trees, and again, like, I grabbed my camera and just ran out there. Took a little bit of video and then a time lapse, and then we actually kayaked out there for a little bit, just watching the sunrise. Unfortunately, this was kind of the peak of the sunrise, because after it went up into the clouds and it was basically gone for the rest of the day. It was pretty overcast. So this photo was taken in January 2019, I think. I think it was called a super blood wolf moon. It's supposed to be something pretty rare that only happens like every so often. So I went out to go shoot for this. It was like -20. I went out around like 1 in the morning, and I couldn't stay out of my car for like more than 5 minutes without my fingers freezing off. This isn't like the cleanest photo, but this is definitely the best photo that I grabbed out of them all. So I was pretty happy with that. It's not like the sharpest, but it's still pretty good. And I like that this was like very minimal editing. The colors that you see are basically the colors that were there. So this picture is at Tobermory. I go to Tobermory quite a bit. Probably my favorite place to take pictures. This was taken at the Northern Bruce Peninsula National Park. The grotto, it's a pretty big attraction, but people usually just refer to this as Tobermory. It's also known as the Saugeen Peninsula. That's what the First Nations called it. This place actually has a lot of history, and it's pretty interesting to read about. The water is just so clear and blue, and regardless of if it's an overcast day, like 9 times out of 10, you will be able to see the sunset. For some reason, the clouds will always clear, and sunset will come up, like unveil itself right before it goes down. This was also taken at Tobermory, but 2016 or 2017, I think. If you swim along the shoreline, you find a fair bit of caves at Tobermory, and I've seen this cave quite a few times. It's kind of at the main part, and I knew I wanted a shot, so I got it all set up and got my friend to take a picture of me. And I just really like the blues that you could bring out in this, and it's kind of a little monochromatic, and the negative space that the cave gives. So this next one was taken at Long Point. That's a picture of me. Me and my friend Julian were camping in late September, I think it was, We arrived pretty late. We were way behind schedule, but it was just before sunset, so we got out of the car and just ran to the beach and started taking a couple photos and videos. And I just really like the composition of this one. I'm kind of like sitting here on the right hand side, and then my eye line along with the dune line kind of leads you into the sunset here. And I just love the texture of the sand and the color, everything in this photo. I just really like what's going on. And then later that night, we were essentially running around just in the shallow waters, taking long exposures. We brought these lights to the beach, just our headlamps, and we were just kind of testing things out. So I put it on the tripod, I took the lights, and I like set the timer, and I run out there, and I wasn't sure what to do, so I just kind of waved them. And I'm like, okay, that's a throwaway shot. And then I saw the photo and I was actually like pretty happy with it. It kind of gives me like a spaceman vibes. I don't know about you guys. And then following that night, I actually stayed up all night. We were going to bed at like 5 and the sun rose in like less than an hour. So I was like, I'm just gonna stay up. So I went back down to the beach about in an hour, and it just looked so cool. These clouds here were kind of like a huge curtain over the sky, and it just kind of unveiled as the sun was rising, so it was really cool to see. And usually you see like a lot of blues in the sunrise, but this felt like a lot more purple was mixed in than blues, so I thought that was like pretty cool to see. So here I took a little day trip to Pinery by myself, just to bike around and relax. It was like May, I think it was, but it was like 30 degrees that day, so it was just like super hot. So I actually went swimming even though it was like freezing, and then I was just kind of chilling around up here in the dunes. And then the sun started coming through the clouds a little bit, and you could see the rays, and I just thought it looked kind of like heavenly. So I decided to do this jumping photo. It's kind of like an ongoing thing I've been doing a little bit. You'll see this kind of photo in multiple instances. And then later that night, I was actually kind of headed back towards my car when I saw the light shining through the bushes. So I went back to the beach and saw this beautiful sunset. It's probably like within the top 5 sunsets that I've seen. And I just had a lot of fun editing this photo, just kind of editing it the way I wanted. The purples are a little bit more embellished, and I added some red into the shadows to give it a little bit more warmth. But overall, I was really happy with how this turned out. It was late October, I think. I went with 2 of my friends from college. We just finished our 4-year degree, so this was kind of like a little mini celebration for us. And this is actually from a time lapse, but I was just very happy with the colors in this photo and the texture in the sand and just how everything was looking. So I ended up taking one of the photos out and just kind of having that solidify, or that single print there. And then later that night we went back to the beach. We brought a bunch of lights, so we were just kind of experimenting with long exposures. And I think this was like a galaxy light machine. It kind of shined lasers for the stars and then like blue lights for like the nebulas and galaxies. But we were using the stars here, and we just kind of wiggled it back and forth and took the photo. And honestly, I didn't think this photo was going to be that good. And then after seeing this photo, like, I was pretty blown away. It almost kind of looks like a contour drawing. I was pretty happy with that. This shot was taken again at Tobermory, but this was of this year. I went camping with a couple friends in like August, I think it was, and took a time lapse of the sun going down. And then soon after, I started another one briefly. I only took like 60 shots, so it's only like 2 seconds. But this is right after the sun went down, so it's just glowing these colors, and it just looked super cool. And this is probably like my favorite photo out of even the time lapse. I really liked the way this one ended up looking. And then later that night we went to Cypress Lake, a little bit closer than the grotto, within the campsite still, and I got a mini time lapse of the Milky Way here. Unfortunately, the clouds did kind of roll in, and I only got like 2 seconds. So again, I just took like one of these photos as a single photo, and this is probably like my best Milky Way photo that I have so far. I'm definitely looking to kind of expand on my star photos. This is the last photo and probably my most favorite photo. So me and two friends were actually trying to go snowboarding, so we went to Blue Mountain Resort, and we show up and we're like, can we get a night pass? And they're like, we close in half an hour. And I was like, oh. They stopped doing night ski because it was March and there just wasn't enough snow to do it anymore. So you can actually see the ski hill here across the water. So we ended up going to Wasaga just to hang out, and we saw all these like the lake was frozen with all these like ice waves or whatever you want to call them. And then there was also like kind of a flat area of ice. So my one friend actually had skates in the car. So we were just kind of like skating around on the ice and then walking around on the ice. And we took this photo, and then I added a gradient map on top of it. And I'm just like super happy with how the colors kind of turned out. It's not the most realistic, but it's like almost realistic. So I just really like this photo. I actually got a print of it right here. Okay, that is the end of this video. I just want to thank everyone that has watched this far. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, maybe a subscription, but you don't have to, no pressure. Other than that, I just want to thank you guys for watching this video, and have a good one.